Welcome to episode 186 of the GT on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 20 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights and Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is fellow analyst Anshul Sag. Let's get started with my first topic. And I had a very interesting conversation, my friend. A PR agency had reached out to me about a week ago. They were representing Booz Allen. Booz Allen is obviously a huge integrator. And they shared some news around what they were doing with Ericsson and Nokia to partner on modernizing the US Navy, their communications with 5G lab and proof of concept efforts. And so I took the call because it was really interesting having Ericsson and Nokia on the call with Booz Allen. There was not a representative from the US Navy, but it was a pretty fascinating conversation, and the timing was pretty cool because you and I had spoken just last week on our podcast about Nokia and Ericsson's federal government business units and how they are discreetly focusing on that opportunity with sales and marketing and all of that.
Are
So,
the two connected?
yeah. What do you mean the two
The
connected in
fact
which
that we
way?
spoke about it, did that cause them to outreach to you?
It may have. It may have. I'm not certain, but in any event, it was an interesting conversation. I asked a lot of questions that they basically said they could not answer because it was government clearance level stuff. But when I asked them about like spectrum and that sort of thing, and asked them about satcom and direct to cell and all that, but the one big thing that came out of the conversation was definitely there's a focus on Open RAN, and certainly Nokia has been very bullish on that. Ericsson's finally sort of joined the game, obviously, as evidenced by, again, the big announcement with AT&T last year. But that's about all I want to say, other than I am going to be writing a Forbes article that's going to go deeper. And I will be speaking with someone with the US Navy to get their perspective as well. I'm sure this will have to go through multiple reviews before it's posted. But I just think it's interesting that Ericsson and Nokia are both working together with Booz Allen. Booz Allen obviously is driving the integration effort of all of this, but I think it's great. I think it's going to provide the Navy with some very, very interesting avenues to pursue. I will also mention, okay, I talked about Open RAN. It's definitely going to be a part of what's happening there. We did talk about network slicing and how the Navy is very interested in that and being able to tailor latency and throughput discreetly to different types of use cases. And certainly we talked about boner. And we also, and that's about the extent that we discussed. But again, I'll be spending time with the U.S. Navy and publishing an article hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But what do you think? It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I think this is definitely something that I feel like a lot of you know organizations, especially the U.S. military, um, want to maybe talk about, but also not in too much detail.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge to fully appreciate what they're doing. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge here, but I do think it's like a clear indication that um, they're serious about modernizing the communications infrastructure and,
Yeah.
and getting things up to par, which I think will be really important. And I'm sure our adversaries are already doing.
I'm sure they are as well. And what I also like about 5G in this particular application is that it becomes a single network construct. And so you eliminate the complexity of having network overlays if you have Ethernet and Wi-Fi and that sort of thing together, and the need to manage all of that, and just the deterministic capabilities of cellular connectivity. Like I highlighted in my most recent Forbes contribution when I visited John Deere and spoke about their private 5G deployment for manufacturing automation and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much deeper I'll be able to go, obviously, because this is very sensitive because it's tied to the military defense of the United States, but I think it's going to make for a great read. So viewers and listeners, stay tuned to that. But hey, man, let's go to your first topic, and you want to talk about Tesla and their desire to deploy private 5G.
Yeah, so a lot of publications latched onto this article or this announcement. It's not even an announcement, really. It was
Hmm.
a job posting that got pulled, and it was for a cellular systems integration engineer that that understands current and future connectivity requirements of Tesla vehicles and Optimus for on-premise use cases like manufacturing, shop floors, outdoor areas, and R&D labs.
Okay.
So, and it goes into detail about Tesla's private 5G protocol stack, ultra reliability and high data rates, using private cellular infrastructure vendor and deployment model globally. And it also mentions eSIM, LTE, CBRS, and standalone 5G. So
Huh.
um, Tesla didn't respond for comment to the light reading article, but um, the truth is Tesla doesn't have a PR department, so they're never going to respond.
Right.
Until Elon decides to respond, and
Other than Elon Musk, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, what's interesting is, this is a really good. Uh, I mean, automotive manufacturing is a great application for this because it allows so much flexibility, and especially with a car like the Tesla that's already pretty, um, connected.
Yeah.
Having those cars and being able to stage them, in the yard and update them remotely, you know, outdoors,
Hmm.
without using too much, actual cellular bandwidth and using a private network instead.
Yeah.
That's already a huge application, but then also think about the factory floor. God knows what they're going to do with the robot.
Yeah.
But maybe the robots are going to require, a constant internet connection in order to be smart enough to actually be an effective robot on the factory floor. So
Yeah.
um, it's going to be interesting. Also, I didn't know this, but Tesla also was in recent litigation with Interdigital for a pool of 5G patents.
Hmm.
Um, and they said that they violated the FRAND um, the rates, and that there are some issues with that. So
Yeah.
that's a separate issue, but I do think it's really interesting that they're looking at this, and I'm wondering if like other automotive manufacturers might fall in their place. I think there are already some auto manufacturers in Europe that are using private 5G.
Yeah. Right.
I think BMW is one of them.
They are.
I think this might actually accelerate the growth of use of 5G in automotive manufacturing, even though
Hmm.
Tesla might not be the first to do it, but they might be the ones who popularize it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely BMW has deployed private 5G. I believe Mercedes as well, Daimler. And I'm hoping when I'm in Europe through a new connection that I've made, uh, I may have an opportunity to tour BMW's facility. They prior to the pandemic, they were actually conducting these 3 to 4 hour tours that showed all of the automation and what they were doing with private cellular. I think it's really clever that Light Reading found a job post and they were able to piece that together and write the article. I did not see it. I also find that it's interesting. I need to dig into that because you mentioned Tesla specifying some sort of special 5G tech stack. And that's not surprising because it seems like everything that Elon does tied to Tesla is very sort of grounds up and unique. And I'm just wondering, like, what's involved in their 5G tech stack? I mean, are they combining? I'm wondering, edge compute with because it's got to be, 3GPP standard stuff. It's likely got to be CBRS, which has been very focused on LTE for the most part. Now we're beginning to start to see some private 5G deployments that are leveraging CBRS. But what do you think their 5G tech stack is all about?
I think it's a proprietary combination of off-the-shelf technologies.
Okay.
I think that they want to have something that fits their specific needs, like you said,
Yeah.
but is also not going to require them to spend too much resources on, creating it. Just, I think they want to, build a solution, not create a.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's probably what it's going to be. It's probably going to be, Open RAN based. Um,
Hmm.
and it's probably gonna, take some of the vendors that already have solutions for private 5G. It's probably gonna be a Nokia or an Ericsson solution in some
Yeah.
way. There's gonna be some integrators involved. So I,
Yeah.
I think this is probably more about, you know, configuring and deploying it than it is really about creating it.
Creating or building it. Yeah, interesting. Cool. Well, I'm gonna dig into that because I think that's pretty clever on Light Reading's part. Was that Mike
Mm,
Dano that wrote that
Yeah, it
or?
was, and they deleted the post. I went to the link on the
Oh,
company's website, and it's gone. So clearly,
oh
it
wow.
got too much attention
Oh man. Oh
because
wow.
now,
Sorry.
because
Yeah.
now, obviously, the cat's out of the bag, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry, Mike. If you're trying to deflect that, but hey, let's move to my second topic, and I want to talk about AT&T, and they had two announcements this week.
Hmm.
The first was around their launch of Internet Air for Business. So they're taking obviously their 5G fixed wireless access solution that they've launched for consumers, and they're broadening that for businesses. And so I didn't dig too deeply into the particulars, but I'm sure they're higher data limits and that sort of thing. And they're probably doing some integration work for businesses. Uh, you know, I like it. AT&T has been very fiber first. They lead with fiber, but I like the fact that they're recognizing. And by the way, AT&T has had an FWA solution with LTE for quite some time. And I assume it was probably a fallback, in areas that maybe are underserved by fiber.
Hmm.
But what I like about this is that they're focusing on small to medium business because of the ease of provisioning and that sort of thing. You don't have to roll a truck. And I think it's also going to be an ideal solution for larger organizations that have branch locations. So if you think like Jiffy Lube or like a national footprint coffee shop chain like Starbucks, although Starbucks is focused on Wi-Fi at least with Cisco these days, but I do like it. And in a lot of these instances in these branch locations, they're already familiar with cellular because it's a backup. It's been a redundant fallback. But the power of again getting back to that single network overlay and ease and provisioning and deployment and ongoing management when you don't have IT staffs at these type of branch locations, I think is pretty powerful. And then at Enterprise Connect this week, so Mel Brew, one of our principal analysts, was there. So go hit her Twitter feed if you want to learn more about Enterprise Connect. But AT&T used the event to launch an initiative with Microsoft Teams for a 5G and AI-infused unified communication solution. So AT&T is claiming they are the first to work with Microsoft to deliver this. And it's taking unified communications mobile, leveraging the power of 5G from a latency throughput device support standpoint, and then using AI because, hey, you know what, man? Any launch that doesn't mention AI is probably light. So they talk about AI and some of the things that Microsoft is doing there to make things easier to manage and and self-heal and that sort of thing. So I don't know if you caught either of these announcements, but it was a big week for AT&T.
I definitely heard and saw and paid attention to the first announcement, and I
Yeah,
have no idea about the second announcement. So,
yeah, yeah,
um, I think the first one's a big deal,
yeah,
mostly because there's so many underserved small medium businesses. Like I used to actually do IT when I was like a teenager, and I used to help deploy networks and configure IT. And the amount of times I was shocked how bad the internet connections were at small to medium businesses. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't understand how you run your business with this kind of internet. So
yeah,
um, yeah, I think it's a big deal, and more FWA is better. I think because then it drives more competition between the different FWA operators, so that
yeah,
small medium businesses get the best deals possible. I did look at the plans. I believe there's
yeah.
two tiers of plans. And
Mm-hmm.
the top tier plan seems to give you unrestricted access for the first 250 gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then beyond that, they start to throttle you if the network is congested. But other than that, it seems like there's a lot of interest in making sure that um, there's ample connectivity for small medium businesses with this kind of solution.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see kind of the market footprint for this because with their consumer solution, it was sort of a limited set of major metropolitan areas, and so it will be interesting to see if the business version follows suit. But time will tell because it's hot off the presses. Hey man, let's go to your second topic, and you want to talk about China Mobile and their plans to roll out 5G Advanced to 300 cities across China this year.
Yeah, so this is an interesting announcement because I went to China Mobile's website and it's nowhere to be seen. In fact, China Mobile does not use their own website for PR,
Okay.
which I find really interesting. What
Yeah.
who does do a lot of PR releases for China Mobile are the Global Times, which is a official Chinese state paper. So
Yeah.
it seems that China Mobile may be a little bit more closely tied to the Chinese government than even I realized. Um, and
Shocking.
I know, and basically they're talking about 5G which is 5G Advanced, which
Yeah.
they interestingly uh, did not call 5.5G, but some other publications did. And effectively what it is it's that half step on the way to 6G. It's release
Yeah.
18. And they're talking about rolling out to 100 cities, which would eventually reach 300 cities by the end of this year. And they're trying to build the world's largest 5G advanced commercial network.
Hmm.
And they're talking about um, the transition from 5G to 6G, and talking about how 5G Advanced has higher speeds, larger connectivity. I don't know what that means.
Larger connectivity.
Lower latency. I assume it means better coverage, but I'm
Yeah.
not really aware of anything in 5G Advanced that improves coverage over other
No.
5G. So
Yeah.
let's take that with a little grain of salt. Uh,
Hmm.
and the interesting thing is that the Global Times that reported on this said that China Telecom, China Mobile, and China Unicom are all actively deploying 5G Advanced. But if you go and look around on publications around this announcement, none of the other operators are actually announcing anything yet. So they're also taking a little bit of a too optimistic perspective on the deployment of 5G Advanced. That said, I do think 5G Advanced will eventually have rollouts. I think it will come later, possibly next year, because we're still figuring out standalone this year with release
Yeah.
17. So I think 5G Advanced will likely be a 2025 story, not a 2024 story. But like many things about China, they tend to embellish the actual reality of what the network looks like and what the deployment is
Right.
like. So I think we'll probably see some rollouts of 5G Advanced this year in China, but I don't think we're actually going to see nationwide coverage until next
Right.
year. And I don't think there's going to be that much, verification of this, but I would be happy to see if they did it, by the end of this year. Um,
Hmm.
and then they also said that China Mobile uh, created an alliance for 5G advanced innovation, which will push numerous achievements in content applications, technology platforms, and ecosystem capabilities. So all these things are very nebulous concepts
Right.
with almost no detail. So when I hear
Yeah.
things like this, um, I tend to be a little bit more conservative with my interpretation. Um, but it is, really interesting when I see stuff like China Mobile has said it's accelerated the innovation of 5G advanced technology, leading the completion of 60 international 5G advanced standards, ranking first among global operators. Like there's a very clear propaganda like
Yeah.
takes here on almost every paragraph. So
Yeah.
I would take this with a grain of salt, and say that it's good to hear that China Mobile is talking about 5G advanced, and I
Yeah.
believe that they will have it. I just feel like we're getting a little bit of a little bit rose-colored lens to
Hmm.
how this is going to be. Um, and yeah, like I think this is good, but realistically, I think we need to see more 5G standalone applications like what we're seeing in India with Geo.
Yeah. Yeah.
I trust and believe Geo way more than I trust China Mobile through the Chinese state,
Yeah.
papers.
Yeah, in the hometown hero, Huawei here, they've been really pushing, 5.5 or 5G advanced. And, you're right. I think it's more practical to focus on standalone, look at network slicing, and let that settle out and get developers, behind that. And really that's going to unlock the true promise of 5G. I mean, that's a phrase that I've used probably 1,000 times on this podcast. But yeah, everything it seems that comes out of China has got pomp and circumstance and, rose tinted glasses tied to it. So, but hey, man, let me get on my third and final topic. And your third and final topic is going to be funner than mine, but I'm going to talk about Keysight and Viavi. They've been battling to acquire Spirent. All of these companies do 5G network design, test, and measurement. Keysight is one of the largest, if not the largest. They are actually, if my recollection serves me well, they are a spinoff of Hewlett Packard. And so initially, ViaV had offered a little over 1 billion euros, which equates to 1.46 billion US dollars. But then Keysight has come in and sort of outbid them, and it totals 1.5 billion. And I've spent a lot of time with Spirent. They do a lot of great work in research. They published a report. I may try to dig that link up so that you can include it when we post the podcast. But from my perspective, this provides Keysight some deeper capabilities within the whole test and measurement realm. And this is super necessary to build out networks. I mean, you just don't hang a bunch of radios and light up the core and you're done. I mean, each network requires, specific design, especially when you look at private networks and the contention with building materials and space and, the spectrum that you're going to be using and all of that. So I think this is a real boon for Keysight. I'm hoping that they allow the Spirent team to keep doing what they're doing because they've done a lot of great stuff. But I think this is great not only for big public mobile network operators, but just for the future of private networking as well. So don't know if you caught the news, but wondering if you have any insights before we move to
I
your third topic.
I actually saw the battle,
Yeah,
and Keysight is a pretty big player,
yeah,
and Spirit is also pretty important. So I get why there's a battle for them,
yeah.
um, or for it to be grammatically correct. But yeah, I just think that you know, this is probably the best thing for Spirits and investors.
Yeah,
Um, and they'll probably get their money's worth. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't really have that much of an opinion. I just think that it's interesting to see Keysight getting involved, but not really surprising.
yeah. And I think maybe some questions will come up around, hey, is this anti-competitive? I mean, you weighed in on Apple and what's going on with the DOJ, and so is Patrick Moorhead, our chief analyst and founder. But I think this deal gets done. It was interesting to see the battle. It really sort of demonstrates the value that these two companies place on Spirent and their capabilities. But
Hmm.
let's go to your third and final topic. Baseball season opened yesterday. You're wearing your Padres hat. I'm in Austin, so I left my Astros hat back home, but my Astros choked, man. They were up 4-0. Yankees came back, beat them 5-4. Your Padres won. But with all of that pretext, um, T-Mobile did something pretty clever. I mean, they're just the king of magenta marketing, and they sent out secret baseball buttons. And so you want to talk about that on opening day?
Yeah, so this little button here came in a tiny little box. I think you got one too, right?
I did.
So basically, why does this button exist? Because when I click on it, it launches a fake. I mean, it's really not a real thing, but it's a fake video call,
Yeah.
6 windows with a fake interface. And you click it
Uh-huh.
again, it launches another tab with all of the games that are being played today. And if you're
I
logged
love
in,
it.
I think you can just click on a game and watch. So
Yeah.
um, this is really the purpose of this is to promote T-Mobile's partnership with the MLB
Yeah.
and that you get free MLB TV subscription for a year if you're a T-Mobile customer.
Hmm.
So this is like a way to promote that, you can watch, baseball at work.
And yeah, and if the boss walks by, you hit the
Yeah,
button.
but the truth is that you and I both work from home. We don't have a boss to be afraid of, unless our wives are watching. But the truth is, that's not really the situation.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like it's a cute little way to promote their partnership with MLB. I actually get a free subscription to MLB TV by being a season ticket holder. Um,
Nice.
but I'll get a second one for free that I usually give away to a friend or family. So
Hmm.
it's cool. And yes, I did go to opening day yesterday. If you can tell, I got a little burnt even though I had sunscreen on.
Yeah.
It was a good game. They were down
Good.
at the beginning, came back and won
Nice.
6-4, 6-3, something like that.
Nice.
But it was against our old manager, Bob Melvin, who was a little bit of sketchy on his departure because it seemed like
Yeah.
he actually checked out in the last season, which was one of our most disappointing seasons we've ever had. And it's not really a shock if he checked out and was thinking
Hmm.
about leaving for an inter-division rival, so
Yeah.
intra-division rival.
Intro.
So yeah, we were happy to beat him. They're playing again today. I will not be at that game. I will be traveling today. But yeah, it was fun, and the little button thing, I got it to work. You just install an app on your PC and click the button. But I don't really see myself using it that much because,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of just keep baseball open if something's going on while I'm working.
Yeah. No, it's great. Again, it just sort of demonstrates T-Mobile's savviness when it comes to marketing. And actually, you can go to a website and you can enter. I think they're picking names out of an online hat, to send these baseball secret buttons out. But yeah, go Astros, go Padres. But hey,
Yes,
buddy, it's been a great podcast. Why don't you take us home?
absolutely. And you were correct. I did not state that. There until March 31st, if you visit secretbaseballbutton.com, you can
Yeah.
enter to win one of these buttons. So yes, thank you for a reminder.
Yeah,
Um,
you heard it here. Our listeners and
yes.
viewers heard it here.
Uh, we hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insights for a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will's at Willtown Tech, and I'm at Anshul Sog. We hope you have a great Easter weekend, and please tune in again next week. And don't forget to rate us and subscribe.